All right, you can continue, Sean. I'm so sorry. Wait. We are live. Let's rock.
And we are
Live.
I was doing that to Kool-Aid before the stream. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Woodward Pistons Table Talk for Thursday, January 12th, 2023, baby. I am one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, joined as always by my tall glass of Kool-Aid. My
Let's
boy,
rock.
how you doing?
I'm doing good, Sean. I'm doing really good. It feels good to be with the fam. It feels good to have like 4 boxes on here. Hopefully, we can get a few more people on here even. Because, bro, we got to talk something very special tonight before we get into some of these other topics.
Well, I mean, dude, it's just good to have the fam here in general. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, like table talk is like the kind of like the point of the week where I could just go and just exhale. You know what I mean? That's the point where we're just everything else is gone. We're just shooting the crap and talking about basketball. And I wouldn't rather be doing it with anyone else other than my guys, such as my guy Steve at AKA Resball Pod, aka Burke Worldwide, aka my friend. Steve, how you doing, good sir?
It's not really relaxing here, though. I mean, Joe's always on the phone. He's trying to make trades. I'm like, don't you have a front office job at the NBA? Like, what are you doing?
Well, also, it's not relaxing there because you don't sleep from the amount of draft analysis and coverage that you do. I'm convinced.
Steve is amazing, man.
I will sleep when I die.
All right,
Steve is
serious
amazing,
question.
man.
How many hours a night you average, Steve?
No, 6 to 8. I sleep enough. I mean,
Oh, okay.
If I
Then how do you
if
find
I
the time
slept
of the
like
day? You're a
under
man,
6,
that's a whole other conversation for
if
another
I
day.
slept under 6, I would be incoherent. I teach 18 to 19-year-olds too. If I got less than 4 sleep, I'm asking for trouble.
Oh man, you are a brave soul, but also joined by my guy, Carl Collins Prod, aka the most talented video editor in the city of Detroit, in the state of Michigan. I don't give a damn who else you putting up there. Carl, it's good to see your beautiful face, my friend.
It's nice to see you too, Sean.
What's
Thanks
good,
for
brother?
the nice words.
Hey, I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't believe it, man. You absolutely crushed it with your Lions promo video before the Green Bay game, which, by the way, I knew no matter what, like, but the thing for me with that game, I knew Detroit was going to come out with the victory. That was never, like left in doubt for me. Aaron Rodgers was ass cheeks all year. And, to think that, the Lions weren't going to try regardless of if they were going to make the playoffs or not, those people just weren't tuning in on Sundays all year. So, yeah, man, that was a good time. But ultimately, if you didn't see the promo video the hype video that Carl made for that, and if you haven't seen all the other work that he's doing, you can find him at Carl Collins Prod on Twitter and also his YouTube as well. Carl, just wanted to give you that quick shout out because of the great work that you did.
Yeah, good work by both these guys, Carl and Steve. Just a lot that they contribute to not just Pistons world and Pistons content creation, but just across the plethora of just, I know with Carl getting into a lot of different Detroit sports, get into the college teams and everything. So you can go there and get just definitely a feel for everything.
And they're also just two of the best dudes you'll ever meet. So that helps too.
Yep. And with Steve, man, the draft coverage, it's been an awesome asset now for what, 2 years in a row?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be going into 2 drafts in a row now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve? Yeah, it's been an awesome thing to have, and to be able to see some of these things really pan out. Like a lot of what you have said continue to just pan out. I appreciate the level of work that you put in, and I want to be able to state this. The reason why we're saying this, like I get that some of the people we rock with, they already know this, but it's because now we got this audio going up everywhere you can download a podcast. So definitely listen, search Woodward Pistons. You will find it. You will find this audio. It's going to be up either tonight or tomorrow, right after this stream.
If you just can't take seeing my face anymore and need to, do yourself the favor of only hearing my voice instead of seeing what produces that voice, you now have that option.
Take us anywhere in the world, and you can just hear our voices. Hey, the voice that I really like, man. Carl, he has like that kind of that midnight voice. Say
Dude.
something for the people, Carl.
Carl, you're muted.
So much for that.
let me hear it, bro.
Carl, can you just say this is late night jazz on 96.5?
This is late night jazz on 96.5.
There we go, man. There we go. There we go.
No. It has to have a
like,
name. It has to have a
we're
name
good.
like it's the Quiet Storm or one of those things, you know.
You're listening to the
96.5
Quiet Storm
The
on
Beat.
96.5. The
Oh,
Beat.
Quiet Storm. I like that. Hell yeah. Dude, Carl Collins, the Quiet Storm. That's what I like. That I love that. I love that.
But Sean, look, you gotta tell the people before we get into it, man. What special occasion are we marking today?
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a last second realization and something, that's kind of pretty cool. I, have been doing content now for like specifically on YouTube for about a year and a half. And you know what? Kool-Aid, let's pull back the curtain, shall we? I like to do that like figuratively, but like literally. This is the apartment in which it all started. This is the backdrop I had before I got that green screen. But this is also my last session I'm ever recording in this apartment before I move into my own place, before I start the next chapter in my life, but also the next chapter in my career where I'm going to be doing so much content, being live so often. I'm about to go absolutely ballistic. And so that, this place was, it was a place that I'm extremely grateful for. In a year alone, we got over 350,000 views on the From Half Court YouTube channel alone, not counting Woodward Pistons, not counting Woodward Sports and the draft content, not counting From Half Court videos that went on that channel as well. I would wager we probably produced over 500,000 views out of this room alone. So with that, I just wanted to say, thank you to everyone that, is allowing me to be in the position to where I can go get my own place. And also, for everyone that's joined on the journey so far. But having said that, man, this year is going to be a whole different level. And the next place I'm going to have, there's going to be an actual backdrop as well. Man, I'm so excited, guys. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and look, this is just we told you what the season was about. It was about get Sean to Detroit Fund, right?
And we're not there quite yet.
Kind of halfway there, kind of. I mean, not as close, but this is a big step for Sean and for the content that's going to be coming. And I'm excited, brother. I hope that the move completely goes the way that you want it to go.
Oh yeah,
it's not too taxing on you, so we can get to all of the great stuff that we have planned for the people.
Even if I lose a limb, I will be live next week. I do not care.
Yo, let's rock, man. But look, Sean, I wanted to talk to you about a few things, and I need to be able to get Carl and Steve in on it too. And look, next week, I think we're gonna have a full panel of people, man. A full panel. Shout out to Kid J. I want to be able to shout out some of our Table Talk members before we get going. But shout out Kid J, one of our newest recording artists. Kid J is actually in the studio tonight, getting some work in. He just hit me up. So
as us recording artists do.
Yeah. You already know. Mm-hmm. Sean and I, we're about to drop our double disc, man. We're about to go platinum. It's about to be
my quadruple platinums, just as we do. Yeah.
Yep. Steve with the ad libs, Carl with the music video. You already know.
Carl with the ad libs of "Oh baby."
Bro, shout out Lexi as well. Shout out Lexi, always supporting one of our Table Talk members, one of the originals. Definitely shout out to her. Hey, we got some people coming up.
I could just picture, by the way, grown up Sean about to be scary. They're grown up. Dude, all I'm saying is the only thing that's scarier than Sean is Sean with a microphone. That's all I'm saying. Give that guy a platform. Holy cow, that's scary.
Yeah.
And you guys have done that. So, mistake on you guys, but here we are.
But look, I want to talk about something. Sean, dog. I want to talk about something that I think something that's going to be really, 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 really cool for the community. I wish I was able to get this stuff over to Steve and Carl as well before we talked about it, but it would be cool to be able to pick you guys' brains as well. And hey, anybody in the comments, definitely just let us know what you think. I know, Sean, you got a chance to kind of familiarize yourself with it, but if you're not familiar with it, you can go and follow Rare Access on Twitter. They're doing a lot right now with the Detroit Pistons. Carl, I actually think you were there today, right? In their Twitter spaces that they did.
You're muted again, Carl.
Yeah, I missed a lot of it. I was there like the tail end of it, 10 minutes left.
Look, I think that this is going to be one of the cooler things to really hit for Detroit Pistons fans. Seriously, like I think back on my experiences as a Detroit Pistons fan and how the camaraderie could have been different. Like what we've started to do by coming together as content creators, by coming together as super fans, by coming together as people who are connected by similar experiences in life, as well as our support for the Pistons. What Rare Access is trying to do is create or really be a hub to take that fandom to the next level, to take that community and make it even tighter. So bringing us all together from all of the different hubs all across the internet, whether it's forums, whether it's discussion boards, whether it's chat rooms, whether it's comments on like Free Detroit News, what we're sports, wherever you're at as a Pistons fan, this is going to be the spot that you're going to want to be at if you want Rare Access. I'm talking about access to merch, access to players, access to coaches, access to a lot of different things, including meetups and more. It's just going to be a wonderful type of thing that they have going on for the fans. And honestly, I think it's a wonderful thing for the organization and the players. When they're talking about restoring, anybody who remembers the Going to Work Pistons, anybody who remembers the Bad Boy Pistons knows that they had a connection to the city. And the Bad Boy Pistons even more so because they got to play games in Detroit. We got this squad here now, and they're looking to really connect. They're looking to bring us all together despite the ups and downs because we're still out there. We're still out there being able to make sure we can be honored the right way. Sean, I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Anything you got to say on it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of us diehard Pistons fans might, recollect over the last couple of years to programs, like Pistons Sixth, and remember a lot of different initiatives that the Pistons have taken as far as fan engagement and being able to reach out to the most dedicated and the most diehard of the community. As someone that started as a super fan, obviously, and now is in a position where I more so cover the team, professionally and try to give that team the coverage that, in my opinion, I thought, it was always deprived of. I think it's a great opportunity. I personally am excited for the prospect of, us being, like community leaders and people that, that can be a part of this program. And, I think the really nice thing about it is that, is from the sounds of it, there's a variety of experiences for different types of fans for whatever you're looking for. So like Kool-Aid said, whether you're looking for physical collectibles, whether you're looking, I know there's something with digital collectibles as well for those that are interested in that, but also like Kool-Aid said, ultimately those fan experiences, that access to the team and bringing people together. Because I think, with the Pistons community and the Pistons fan base, I think one thing, Kool-Aid, that like this channel has tried to be, and I think one thing that like we've tried to help do is try and bring find a place where we can bring Pistons fans together, right? Because there are so many different mediums where Pistons fans are. So the prospect of the Pistons providing a platform that's for those people that are the true dedicated hardcore people, and the fact that we can try and help create experiences and and also like see experiences that makes being a fan just that much better, especially with that program coming out, in my opinion, in a really exciting time for the franchise. I think there's a lot of good things to look forward to about it. So at the very least, I think if you're a dedicated fan, it's worth looking into for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, I want to wait until I get into more about the program. I know they got some more stuff that's coming out. They also have some AMAs, and they want to be able to interact with fans before they launch. Today, they gave out some free passes as well, and they're looking to give out more free passes in the future. So definitely, whenever you see anything about Rare Access, tap in. We will be retweeting everything about those types of fan experiences so that you can be a part of it and involved. But Carl, Steve, I wanted to be able to get you guys' thoughts on it real quick before we get into I want to talk about Hayes, Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, and Jaden Ivey. But real quick, I want to be able to get you guys' thoughts on rare access, some of the stuff that you've heard already about it, and what you're hoping they can help facilitate for the Pistons community.
Well, I remember when, there's a long period of time where I was a fan and there wasn't any social media at all. So, like, you didn't really feel connected at all to the team. And then, Twitter and Facebook came out and they started updating us with, random updates about the team. And now with this, it's like taking it one step further where we can have even more access. And I think it's great personally. It's something that I've actually hoped they were going to do for a long time now. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, especially for me personally, as someone that was part of the Piston 6 program, and like what that was, and like where they were like, because it seems to me like this has a lot of, this seems like an evolved, concept of what they were trying to do at the time. But unfortunately, I believe a big part of that was, COVID-19 just derailing a lot of that. But, ultimately now, that we can get together, in person, and it sounds like there could be those types of events, but also the fact that, through COVID, we learned so much about how we can gather together digitally. I think the fact that, we have that ability, I'm just excited for like what prospects those bring. Like, I'm just excited. Like, imagine having, like, imagine the idea of like having like a special Q&A with like your favorite bad boy Pistons, like imagine like being able to have like, like a fan Q&A with Troy Weaver, and to get more, just to get to know him more as a person, like I just, like, to me, like I like the things, like those are the things that excite me, is just, we see a lot of interaction with those figures in the media, but those interactions with the fans have just become much more rare. So I love the fact that, the Pistons are doing their best to create that.
Hey, I like 3-3 Sports Guru. He said, I'm trying to go to Paris 15. Can they make that happen? You know what? If this was next year, I could see them finding a way to incentivize somebody, because
I could see him doing like a giveaway. I could see him doing like a super duper ultra mega, like essentially like be Hooper's, biological child, type access.
Yeah, look, that's what I'm working on. If you've been seeing the pictures, and there's gonna be some videos soon too, man. I'm working on that. How can I become
being Hooper's biological child? That's what you're working on.
It's natural. I'm a Hooper, right?
Oh my gosh. Dude, can I share my funniest Pistons story, by the way?
Hey, go ahead before we transition.
Okay, so really quickly, so there was like a period of time where like our family, just for a couple of years, like just like kind of during the recession, and just kind of like when the Pistons were struggling a little bit, where we kind of like, it's been a while since we had been to a Pistons game, and so we had went a lot back in the going to work era, and back when they were doing as well as they did. And one of the things that, if you remember going in that era, was that the Pistons didn't always have one mascot. Like at one point, Hooper had a son, or like, Hooper had like a sidekick. And so like we came back to the Palace, and we were like, man, things are different. A lot of things have changed. And my brother looks at me and goes, didn't Hooper have a kid? We were like, oh my gosh, they cut out Hooper's kid. Y'all are savages.
Shoot.
Oh my gosh, it was funny.
What did they do to Hooper's kid, man? Like, hey, we got to figure that out one day. We're gonna do a documentary on that.
Maybe he went to college. Like, that's the cop-out answer,
Shoot. But look, I wanted to be able to talk to you guys tonight about Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey, and I think I gotta add in Hamidou Diallo, man.
Yeah, those guys play basketball, don't they?
Hey, those guys play basketball, man. And lately they've been playing basketball pretty consistently. I think better than a lot of people believe that they would this year. Hamidou Diallo was somebody who even came into this year really, really confused about his role, really confused about what he was going to do. He was saying, hey, I feel like I'm still young, and it's crazy when you look at the age. It's like he's 24. But he's like, but I'm being asked by the organization to take on this veteran role. And he said he had to learn it. That's what he stated. And now that I hear KC continuing to say the same things, the players though they said they were ready to compete, They also said that they were here to learn these new roles and positions that they were going to be put in. And it's a new era of basketball for them too. It's continuing to evolve. The era of positionless basketball now, we see that the Pistons have caught up as it relates to offense. They're not a bad offensive team, but defense, and I believe Steve and I were talking about this on when we were profiling Asir Thompson for the NBA draft. Defense is now starting to go positionless. You know, it seems like you have to be able to switch everything, and we see that starting with or really, really good with Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. You know, but yeah, I mean, he's been really, really, really putting in some work. He's really been impressing me. Killian Hayes as well. What I've been really impressed with Killian Hayes is any down that he has, he comes right back and erases it. Whereas before, if he would have an off game, he would get stuck in those for like a month. You know, and people would get back to, whenever he has a good stretch, it's just for this small sample size. But who Killian Hayes is somebody that we need to ship to France and leave him there. You know, now we see Killian Hayes coming out. Like, it just seems like there's something different. Some switch is flipped in his head, and the confidence is just there. And with Jaden Ivey, I keep hearing about the rumors of his demise, but every time I go and I check the last 10, they seem to be better than the last 10. And so I wanted to just be able to have an open talk with the crew about those three players plus Hami and anybody else that you think, you know, is showing some type of positive trends that you think need to be highlighted.
So I want to say with Hamidou Diallo, I think one thing with him, and this is actually, like kind of bouncing off an idea I heard Nick Henkel bring up before on their pod. So shout out to Nick, love him. But one of the ideas he brought up was what if Hamidou Diallo just said, forget the jump shot and just go and try to beat Tony Allen. And if you guys don't know, like, Tony Allen, like, this is, the guy that both Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant have said, is the toughest defender that they've ever faced. A guy who made an entire career by, he might not have been the greatest offensive player, but he was gritty as hell on the defensive end. He caused turnovers. He got, he got in people's faces. I think the biggest thing with Hamidou Diallo is, like, with his gifts and with his skill set, like, a lot of guys think that they can find a spot in this league through scoring. And although there's a lot of guys in this league that can put the ball in the court, and although at times Hamidou can go get a bucket if you need him to, the reality is when Hamidou's defending, when Hamidou's being a pest on that side of the ball, that's when he's at his best. So, just the fact that he's, finding more consistent time. And I mean, remember, there was a time where Kevin Knox was solidly, had his spot in the rotation. He wasn't even playing. He was collecting DNPs. So to see him be someone that, they're leaning on, and again, like, similar time to last year with Sadiq as well, where, like, this time last year, like, Hamidou and Sadiq both got out of the gate slow. But then once January rolled around, they started to piece some things up, figure things out, and find their groove within the offense and in the team as a whole. So, yeah, man, I just think, it turns out young players need time to develop. So with that, I think there's still a lot of good things to be optimistic about.
Yep. And you know what? It's interesting too, because when I look at the Bojan signing, I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, well, maybe they get rid of one of these guys, either Bojan or Sadiq or this guy or that guy, because these guys aren't fitting. What if they got Bojan because of what I've been saying? He's instant offense. What if they got him because these young guys, some of them, their trends are that they may take 20 or 30 games to get it going sometimes. Sadiq Bey has been a guy who every year that he's played at NBA, his shooting numbers have just taken some time to catch up. But when they do around that 30, 35, 40 game mark, it's absolutely like bananas for Sadiq Bey. And he goes on some stretches and some tears. It's just like, wow. So I thought, hey, maybe this signing of Bojan, like, my thinking lately is to make sure that the offense with Cade Cunningham can get going. Cade likes to come out and facilitate. No matter how much you want to change a person's, the way that they inherently play, sometimes, especially with a playmaker like Cade, they're just going to come out and play the way that they do. And you need guys that can get out there and get going right away. So that was an interesting thing. But it's great to see Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey, and these guys coming out now hitting over their last 10, 15 games like 35, 38, 40% from three-point range, man.
I want to hear these guys' thoughts too, but just really quickly, with Hamidou Diallo, He's the type of guy where, like anything can happen at this point, like not saying like we know who's going to be here in the long term, but, just with the way that he plays, like, with his type of energy, I can just picture LCA fully packed in a playoff series, yelling defense, and Hamadou is giving someone problems, in the half court, like those are the types of guys like in a series, like, again, like Shaq and Kobe have said, like Shaq, I remember like Shaq said in an interview, stars get you to the final, stars get you to the playoffs, role players win you championships. And so, like that's the big thing is like, finding your role, being comfortable with that. And, the fact that we have guys that are, within our rotation and, within our depth that are cementing roles seemingly or trying to. That's what you want to see this year.
Yeah. But look, Carl, Steve, comments, any of these guys on the roster, but, focused on Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey, plus Hamadou Diallo, man. I just want to get you guys' thoughts on the positive trends, what you've seen, what you hope these guys, expand on.
You want to go first, Steve? I can go first. I'm really happy for Killian. He's really unlocked something that we all knew was inside of him. It just takes time. It's just the classic example that it takes time. But clearly, Troy Weaver saw something that we're seeing now, and I'm happy for him. I must say that I was pretty discouraged. That one game where he pretty much waited to pick the ball up and he let the other team, run up the floor and get it. That was when I kind of lost it. And for about a week and a half after that is when he started to turn around. I don't think I've never been more pissed at a player than I was at him. When it comes to Hammy, I think he he and Sadiq both took a while to kind of get going last year, and I think we're seeing it again this year. I like what I see from both of them. My only concern, and I might be in the minority for this, my only concern is we're gonna have to do this every year. Wait for them to get going for 40 plus games.
And that's gonna have to be the development next season, Carl. To your point, is like this is a year, and Dwayne and as we've highlighted, Dwayne Casey said at the beginning of the year, this is the leash is long. This is the year for development. If we were trying to contend, we wouldn't be as patient. So as good as these guys are playing, and as much as they're picking it up, as to your point, in this league, you don't have buffer time, even though there's 82 games. A 7-game stretch can be the difference between a playoff appearance and being home in April.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my only, obviously I love the way that they're playing. And if they can play like this all the time, hey, I'd love to have them on the team. Again, it's just the consistency with Sadiq more so than Hamadou, but it kind of is what it is. We're going to have to see how they develop in the offseason to somehow get them off to a better start. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Palpatine of hoops, what are your thoughts, my friend? Steve. He looks like Palpatine. He's like Palpatine from Star Wars. He's like, do it. I'm sorry. Anyway,
I will say really quick, just to piggyback on that, on your Sadiq Bey point of starting quicker. With his development, I know this year that's what they focused on, was getting him more versatile, getting into the paint, getting to the free throw line. So he's not just reliant on if his shot is there or not. And I believe that next seasons we're going to see Sadiq Bey be even more natural and smooth with the handles. Remember, I even put this in an article about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and we were talking about this all summer. I wanted to see him get busy in the pick and roll game. And if you've noticed the last couple games, you'll see they're letting him get busy in the pick and roll game, and he's finding himself at the free throw line off of that. If he can do this to start next season, I believe he'll get off to much quicker starts, whether that three is going or not. But what'd you call Steve?
The Palpatine of basketball.
Yeah.
You ever see Star Wars? Like, he looks like a Sith Lord right now, man. He's like sitting dark in the corner. He's just like, do it. Like just sitting there angry, like, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
With Joe Vader behind him.
Yeah, I find your lack of faith in Sadiq troubling.
I find your lack of faith in the restoration disturbing.
So I'm going to go long, though. Consistency, like you have all said. I don't want to criticize the coaching staff because they know better than me, but Sadiq is a good example of like navigating the ups and downs of an NBA season while also like trying to develop a player and maybe doing things that hurt in the process. I say all that because what is Sadiq? Is he a small forward? Is he a power forward? Is he a starter? Does he come off the bench? Is he just a shooting specialist? Do they want him to be a 6-man microwave scorer? Do they want him to really use up a lot of on-ball reps? Because they've done all these things for the past 2 seasons. COVID hit last year. Everybody was out. They're like, Sadiq, here's the ball. Go cook. We don't got anybody else, right? And he responded very well. This season starts, he's in the starting lineup, and then they have to switch because the bench sucks. So they're like, Sadiq, you got to go to the bench. And he's like, cool, that's fine. Burks comes back, and then they're like, oh, Sadiq, we're not going to give you the ball as much because Alec can shoot 45%, which, by the way, is more than Bojan right now, just so you know. And yeah, it's the right move again. But then what is he doing there?
Bojan's volume's higher. Right.
He's kind of stuck in no man's land. And then they start him at shooting guard for a couple games, which was interesting to say the least. But they've had to do all these because people are injured, right? You got to have somebody who's this willing to try things out. And that's why his percentages have been all over the place. He's been asked to play a bunch of different roles. But I will just criticize one thing. And like, I would love to be a fly on the wall in the meeting rooms with like Troy and Coach Casey to be like, what's Sadiq's long-term projection? What is the role that you envision him playing? Because as a fan, as somebody who watches the team every game, I don't know what that is yet. But he has, again, continued to respond. The last 19 games, he is 39.4% from 3 on 5.4 3-point attempts per game, as they've kind of got him away from shooting guard number 1, been able to get him more minutes alongside Ivy a lot of times with the double beef guys. And I don't want to say they've taken away more of his like 2-point opportunities, but it does seem to be shifting more towards that floor spacer, which is what we all kind of want. And maybe it took these 2 seasons of shifting him all around to be like, you know what, let's just put Sadiq back in the corner. He can be a better version of somebody like
I love Sean. I mean, I love Sean too, but I love Steve. I'm sitting on the quotes from last night. You're literally, you must be Dwayne Casey, because that's literally what he said. He said, look at the numbers. Yeah. He's a catch and shoot guy. When we have him trying to shoot off the dribble, not when he's going to the rim, when we have him doing some of the intermediate or trying to shoot the 3 off the dribble, they said that just doesn't work for him. He's shooting 50% from the corners on catch and shoot. He was like, he's a catch and shoot shooter. He just kept saying that over and over and over again last night. And when we looked at the stats, when the other beat writers probably looked at it, we were all probably like me, like, oh, that's Sadiq Bey. And that's what was so cool about seeing him and Bojan Bogdanovic work so well together against the Timberwolves, is that's what they had Sadiq Bey doing more. It was either pick and rolls to the rim, or just when you get the ball, Casey said, just shoot. He said, don't think, just let it go. And remember, Sean, we would talk. How many of these games, remember, especially earlier in the season, when we would do some of these table talks from the arena, and I would say, Sadiq looks hot. They would just throw it to him, boom. No dribble, no nothing. He just boom, 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 back up, boom, 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 boom. And I know a lot of people say, well, they're open. They're just out there doing their thing. This is what they do. No, it's not what they do. Sadiq Bey is out there making threes in the layup line and in warm-ups at a higher rate than really anybody else out there. Bojan's not really out there like that. But Sadiq Bey is like out there before everybody, then while everybody's out there, and then out there while everybody's gone, just hitting threes. And that's why I was like, man, I don't know why they don't just go to him. Like, well, I hope they figure something out. Your eyes haven't been lying to you, Steve, man. That's great. That was just a great assessment.
Yeah.
Like I said, consistency to pivot over to the defensive side of the ball. That's where it's more concerning for everybody. And they've talked a lot about in the past couple of press conferences, like bad defensive habits. I mean, I criticize Ivy for defense, and I'll criticize Sadiq just as much. You're in your 3rd year. Some of the mental mistakes he's making are inexcusable, to be perfectly blunt. I know James Edward III came out and said like Sadiq is more movable than Bojan and Burks. I wonder if that might have something to do with it. I would hate for Sadiq to get traded. I always hate it when guys get dealt on their rookie deal. when they're still developing. You don't quite know what they are. But like, again, the team hasn't done the best to help out anybody, especially on the perimeter. Beef Stew, Jalen Duren, Killian, and then after that, who's the next best defender?
Right. And yeah, I think to your point, Steve, I think with like, with Sadiq, I think part of it's been experimentation. Part of it's been, just the circumstances in which they've been in, like there was that point where Sadiq, like you said last year, where he was put in that place to be the number, where he had to be the number one scorer for a stretch of games, where he had to be the primary guy handling the ball. And like, even though like, he's a guy where we've seen he can have nights where he can just go off and where he can just be special. And like, there was that, the 50+ point game last year where everyone was like, is this guy a superstar? And it's like, well, probably not. But like, the reality of it is, like you guys said, like he's like not like he doesn't have like he has the potential to be an elite like catch and shoot 3-point shooter in this league. And like, like if he's put in the position to succeed and put in the proper role, that's where he can propel. And I think that's been like part of it, like, like that change at the beginning of the season, like part of it because, part of it, like you said, because like the bench sucked and, like but like part of it because, like Sadiq, like someone else mentioned, like when you put him with like a ton of scorers, a lot of guys, are just like, trying to create the ball or like, like need the ball in their hands, like he was just kind of in the background. And like, I think that's going to be the thing is, if he is going to be here, like you said, for one, he does have to get better on the defensive end, and the whole team does. Like, I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. The defense is, just not good enough, especially for a Detroit team. And when we're looking at, a restoration, that's where the restoration needs to breathe more life. That's where it needs to bear more fruit. And I think that's, something not only that could be corrected or like that could be examined at the trade deadline if there's opportunities, but also this off season, I think the part of that cap space is we need to bring in guys who are tough. We need to bring in guys who don't quit on that end of the ball because that's the ultimate litmus test in Detroit.
Yeah, if I can say one more thing too on Sadiq's defense and his defense. If you go back and look at the last Orlando game, he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and I wasn't asking Sadiq specifically. I'm just saying the whole.
No, I know. I just wanted to add that because that was one more thing because like the flashes are still there. And it, again, might speak to the like experimenting with the lineup and having him move all around. I think there are a couple game films where he's on like bigger forwards where he does a good job. And you see him in man-to-man defense really frustrate somebody like Apollo, who even as a rookie is just running over people. That's got to be something to look into of like, this is what his defensive role should be.
Steve, let me ask you this question real quick. Sadiq Bey, a 3 or 4 to you?
4. I think by now we've seen definitively that he can't be athletically matched up with threes on defense. So 4.
Yeah. What about you, Carl?
I agree. And it's crazy though, because like I never thought of Sadiq as a bigger guy, but like you see him like up against like our bigs, and like he's not as tall, obviously, but he's like almost there.
He got a little stock.
Not only that, but
also, for lack of better terms,
too.
you see him in person, like that's the Piston to me where TV doesn't do him justice. Where you go in person, it's like, oh no, that's a dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's hefty, man. It's one of those guys that you're like, that if he sets a pick, you're probably gonna feel it. I know that we think of him as like a 3 or perimeter guy. And Sean, I didn't ask you yours because I saw you put up the 4 as well. Comments, man. Y'all put it in the comments as well, man. What position do you guys think Sadiq Bey plays best? Dwayne Casey always says you are what you defend, and as Steve aptly put it, Sadiq Bey defends 4s a little bit better. Not necessarily the longest, rangy 4s, but he does defend 4s better than the athletic, speedier wings and 3s.
He's a guy that you would rather ask to bang in the post than try and chase guys in the perimeter. As much as we love Sadiq, he's just not the quickest guy. I think he's better as like a help side, like defender in the interior. And if he needs to like hold guys inside the 3-point line, like, we've seen him show the capability to do that. It's just, again, like this is where like that roster deficiency shows up. That's where, I remember Kool-Aid, you made a tweet like, after the Portland game saying how the Pistons missed Jeremy Grant and like what that was showing on the court. And I think a lot of people overreact. We're like, hey, remember we have Jalen Duren, and it's like, well, that's not you were saying. That's not what you were saying.
Roster construction.
Like that, like it's like that. Like absolutely. Like in the long term, Jalen Duren is a hell of a prize to have. 100%. What you were alluding to is something that you and I talked to a lot, which is the fact that Jeremy Grant plugged a lot of holes that we didn't realize that were there on this team. He took the number one guy each and every single night. He was Mr. Even though he wasn't as elite on the defensive end in Detroit as he maybe was in defender, his offensive load as he was in Denver, his offensive load in Detroit was far heavier. So you quite frankly, like that's the thing he was asked to do in Denver. Like, whereas in Detroit, he was asked to play that different role. So I think the ultimate point is with him gone, like the lack of that lengthy and athletic personnel. And that's something that Troy Weaver alluded to last year at the deadline as well. So quite frankly, he just chose not to address that this offseason. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about Killian Hayes. I think that the confidence, the aggression, I know Carl talked about him a little bit earlier. I'm proud of him. I think that's the best word that I can use. I went back today and I was looking at some of the clips when I went on the Morning Woodward show, because every time I've gone on there, there's been two things that Adam has asked me about. Man, shout out to Adam. Shout out to Jeff, host of the Morning Woodward show on Woodward Sports. Definitely check them out from 8 to 10, Monday through Friday. But there's two things he always asks me about. Killian Hayes, Dwayne Casey, man. It's like he's trying to get me in trouble, but it's always great conversation. It's always great. It's always great conversation, though. And I told him I remember back in, what was this? November like 12th or 16th or something, man. It was for 16th. Don't let me say 12th. It was for my son's birthday, November 16th. I know that for a fact now. And he asked me about Killian Hayes. And I was like, at that point in time, yeah, it's fair to be disappointed in Killian Hayes, but it was more about what's up here. I told him, look, if I thought that this was about his skill or his talent or whatever, rip him to shreds, but it's about that confidence. And I'm telling you, he's going to get it together. And he asked me point blank. I'm like, yes, he's going to get it together. And, when they drafted Killian Hayes, you could see all the potential. You could see what Troy Weaver and those guys were talking about. You could even in some of the games when he would get upset, you could be like, hey, he could hoop, he could ball, he could play defense really, really good. But there was just something about stringing together those games with confidence. This year, it's just like something snapped, man. I don't know what happened. And I know that, in terms of going out there and scoring 20 points, 5 and 5 a night, that's not what he's doing. But in terms of going out there and looking like the player everybody has asked since he's been drafted, can you at least look like this? Killian Hayes is finally consistently that. I don't know what changed. And it was before he went and started punching people in the head and everything. It was well before that. But I mean, am I tripping? Like, even after you slugged him he was just like black. Even after that, I was like, I wonder who he's gonna be in this next game. He came right out just walking. Like, what's up? I'm here to play.
What was shocking to me, and I tweeted this a while back, but like how quickly he went from cringe basketball to binge basketball. That's like
I love that.
It was like within like less than a week.
He went from can't watch to must watch.
Yeah, it was instant, like within a few games, like opposites.
Yep, with a swag, man. It's like a Brandon Jennings swag that he got now.
I'm going to be honest.
He always had the swag. It's just performance, but now he's got the two together, and it's crazy. The
inner cynic in me, because my whole thing with because because I don't try to be cynical. You know what I mean? Like, my whole thing is I like to. I try to look at basketball with as positive an outlook as possible. But, the cynic inside of me was looking at those performances from Killian, because we've seen in the past couple of years, we've seen stretches of Killian playing good basketball, right? Like, it's not like, because like, that's why we knew it was in him, because we've seen it with our own eyes. My thing was, okay, how long until he just goes back to like some version of like, in between, like where he was at the beginning of the season or where he was, like now, essentially, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't happened. And quite frankly, what we've seen from the evidence and from the data is that's not gonna happen. Like, this is who Killian Hayes is. Like, that's who he's been. That's who he's gonna continue to be. And I think the big thing is like, when Cade comes back in the lineup, like the fact that for a fact now that like when Cade comes off the court, the prospect of having him coming into the lineup, like that jolt of energy and everything that he's bringing to the court. Again, the 3-guard lineup, with him, Ivy, and Cade looks a whole lot more possible now than it did 4, 5, 6 months ago. Which by the way, everything I'm hearing from Cade, by the way, talked to Ashton earlier today, caught up. Shout out Ashton. Cade's doing good, hungrier than ever.
That's what I like to hear.
Hey, and when Victor steps up on the floor with us, it's gonna be.
Hey, you know what? I usually make these appeals. I sanction this because I don't know if we're gonna get Devin Booker, and I already missed out on Jabari Smith. So somebody else make a daggone appeal. Carl, please make this appeal for Vic. Please, bro. We got it. I'm not
listen, man. I'm not listen. I'm not. I don't want you guys to get your heart broken when there's when his name is possibly called elsewhere. Because here's the thing, and Steve will tell you, as basketball Palpatine down here will attest.
What are you doing to me, bro?
I'm tempering expectations, and I'm bringing up the reality.
I
am bringing up the reality that whether or not we get Victor Wembanyama, we are going to be A-okay because of the players and the prospects that are in this NBA draft. Is one of the deepest drafts that we've seen in the history of this league, and the pools that we're getting of talent each and every season is something we have seen and is quite frankly unprecedented. That's what I'm saying.
Do you believe him, Tayshaun? You believe him? All right. Only because Tayshaun said, yeah, I'm going to go with it.
That is what I'm saying.
I'm going to go with it. Man, these Killian Hayes last 10 numbers, 13.2 points per game, 7 assists, 3.1 rebounds. And that doesn't really tell the whole story with Killian Hayes. We can box score watch. It only tells just a little bit. If you're actually watching the games, you see something different. He's kind of playing his position. There were some kind of clunkers there where the shot wasn't falling. But despite the shot not falling, he was still finding big ways to contribute all over the court. One of those games in particular, not the San Antonio game, but the Golden State Warriors game that they actually won, where he had 9 points, 2 rebounds, but 13 assists. And he was playmaking all over the court, and you could see just the difference he was making. And Sean, to go back to what you were talking about, that 3-guard rotation, when we go back to preseason, that was one of those stretches. I know there's only so much you could take from preseason, but we were all excited to look at this 3-guard rotation coming into the season. And when we saw them actually put it together, they looked good. Casey was like, we were shocked. There's some things in the preseason are not going to translate. Casey sat up there after like 2 weeks and was just like, I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, think about it, man. Like, he was just like, when it's not anything to do with the skill set, is when the coach sits there and says, I don't know what happened. He was doing what we asked him to do. They were all taking freaking 20 shots a game, and it was actually looking really good. And then it just disappeared.
I mean, from a basketball standpoint, are you telling me that you are not intrigued by the idea of a Cade, Ivy, Hayes, Stewart, Duren lineup and what that can be
really well
on both ends of the basketball? Because here's the thing. You're not even compromising shooting at that point, because Isaiah Stewart's become extremely like lethal beyond the arc. Killian Hayes is been one of the best shooters for the Pistons beyond the 3-point line. I'm going to wager that Cade's shooting woes at the beginning of this season were due to the fact that he was playing on a bad wheel, and Jaden Ivey is probably only going to get better as he goes on. Statistically, shooters tend to shoot better as they age, at least the ones that stay in the league. So if he wants to, he has to. But that's the reality. Like just the reality of it is, like, they have options. They have like so many different, and that's what this like season's about. It's like, yeah, you can look at the results, you can look at each night, and it's like, yeah, there are certain things about this team that do need to change going into next season. There are aspects of this team that, like, if we want to restore the Detroit Pistons, can't stay the same. But I feel like I've been hearing like a lot of like frustration. People like I know Mike Valeni said last week, like, they better start winning next year, or like this can't keep going on. It's like, do the Pistons not realize like they know that? Like do people not realize like Troy Weaver's like not an idiot and that like he has a plan?
Sean, hold on, bro. Y'all, please go look at the last Kool-Aid and Murph we did. Please. Sean took an unnecessary shot at somebody in the Detroit media, and it was actually hilarious. I'll just say that. Unnecessary. This just reminded me of it, dog. This just really
a joke. It was a joke. It's all in good fun.
I loved it.
I said Mike Valeni. That's what I said, but it was all in good fun.
I love it, man.
Oh,
but I want to move on to Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey. And just by a show like head nods, man. How is everybody feeling about Jaden Ivey in this recent trend? Hey, in the comments too, man. Let me know. Steve. I feel like it's even darker over there than it normally is. It's like red glow on his face. Steve, it's like when it went dark, when Kylo Ren went dark, man.
Steve, even for his biggest critic, you got to admit there's some flashes of some really good things there.
I got
on offense. On offense, yes. On defense, it gets worse. This is a stretch of games.
That's fair.
Where Casey finally pulled him out of the lineup within like the first 5 minutes. I forget which game, and I was like, "Oh, that's not good." Like when Casey pulls a young player out that early, that's bad. He never does that. So that's why I say. I have Ivey's shooting stuff pulled up. Last 22 games, 36.4% from three. That's good. The thing with him, though, that I like in the offseason, I would be like, you are standing at this free throw line and staying here until you can get your free throws above 75%. You are leaving too many points out there on the court. He has consistently struggled since his freshman year at Purdue to keep that free throw percentage above 70%. Inexcusable for somebody who has that game that gets to the line. You're leaving too many points out there. That would be my number one thing with him.
For lack of better terms, that's something that could be the difference between him being a rotation player and an all-star.
That's the difference between him being an 18-point per game scorer and like a 25-point per game scorer.
That's something that we see all these guards in the NBA, like Trae Young, James Harden, even like Ja Morant, like their ability to manipulate contact, get to the rim. Like Jaden Ivey, we've seen his ability to draw fouls, but like you said, Steve, I mean, especially for a guy like him, it's not like to be harsh. It's just the reality.
We know you're good. We want you to be great.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, if he can do that, that will change the way defenses attack him. Right now, they don't care if they foul him. They don't care if they take a charge and it's like a 50-51. If he can stay over 75%, they will really care. If he could shoot free throws like Sadiq, they would already be defending him way different than they are right now.
And I also, looking at the career statistics and looking at Jack Kelly actually made a really good post like a week or two ago highlighting the fact that, Russell Westbrook's rookie stats and Jaden Ivey's rookie stats are almost identical at this point in their careers. And I know a lot of people look at Russell Westbrook and cringe because they think of the guy, who's on the Lakers right now. But, we have to remember the guy who was an MVP and a multiple time All-Star and a first ballot Hall of Fame player in the NBA Hall of Fame someday. I do think, though, if Jaden Ivey wants to be the best version of himself, I think he can learn a lot from the mistakes and from the shortcomings of Russell Westbrook. And I think that comes with, like you said, Steve, nipping those things in the bud early, getting at the line, improving at that. Like we saw Russ at one point was great at the line, but towards the end of his career, he became a 60% free throw shooter. And that's part of what has been his demise is the fact that he can't hit free throws. And the other part is that he can't hit threes and he's not always the greatest defender. So, those are the things is and especially in this city, what did we hear for Jaden Ivey on draft night? They challenged me to be great on what side of the ball? The defensive side of the ball. And so, that's why those are the reasons why, even though it's it is shocking to see, with Stan Van Gundy, he'd pull a guy out of the lineup for the rest of the night if Luke Kennard sneezed. You know what I mean? If Dwayne
and then
Casey
talk about him the whole post game.
Mm-hmm. And and he'd be like, "Oh, Luke Kennard, I just didn't like what he was doing." It's Stan Van Gundy always does. But the big thing, is like Steve said, if Dwayne Casey's pulling a guy out of the lineup, there's a reason. And so And that's going to just be part of that tough love you're going to be getting in the beginning of the league. But again, like I will say, the moments that he's patient on the offensive end, the moments where, like those games where he's like extremely efficient, 7-11 from the field, like you see the moments where he's slowing down and he's playing within the flow of the game. Those are the moments where it's like, man, this kid can be really good. But like you said, Steve, I mean, and again, that's why, like, I don't want to, like, for me, I'm not going to highlight a specific player. I mean, there's definitely specific players where it's like, all right, you got to be better. For me, it's just hard for me to blame one player when the whole team just has, like, when, like, it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, they had a few players injured. Even then, giving up 140 plus points on an NBA game, no matter what the circumstances are, it's rough to see. It just is.
Yeah, it's rough to see. And the only reason why you don't condone it, you don't accept it, but you can make sense of it is because they didn't have their bigs, and Philly scored 82 points in the paint on Joel Embiid's first night back. It sucks. That was one of those games I said, burn that tape. And Casey said it. Like, they were just rearing to get back on the court and just erase the memory of that game.
Yeah, you that's like when you have to put out your break glass in case of emergency big against perhaps one of the greatest isolation scoring bigs perhaps we've ever seen in the history of this league, you're not going to have a good time. And to be honest, when there's a player in the Pistons lineup that even I'm not very familiar with, that's when you know that they're shorthanded. Go ahead, Steve.
One last thing, Ben Golker brought this up on the Detroit Bad Boy podcast this week. The San Antonio film for me is where I'm starting to, like, I would point people to go look back in that game and why I'm so critical of Jaden Ivey. Trey Jones cooked him for 25 points. He was blown by him like he wasn't even there. Like, why? I'm not even sure Trey Jones could jump over a phone book, right? Like, why is this guy who is nowhere near the level of athlete cooking you this bad? There are a lot of defensive fundamentals. For as much of a coach's son as Ivy is on offense, I don't know how much of that translated over to defense. Like, Trey Jones should not be cooking you. You have supposedly a 6'10" wingspan. I know there's veteran guile and whatever. He's not that much older. But, like, go look in that film. There are a lot of things he has to get better on defense. It's not just like one or two things. You are not that level of athlete if you get cooked by somebody that is, that far between you. I've come to the point where I'm like, if Jaden Ivey were a football player, he's a deep threat. One of those guys that you just bomb to but doesn't have much wiggle. I think that's more or less what it is. He is a straight line athlete. Fantastic. But on the defensive side, he's got to be able to know how to translate that laterally too. There's just too many times where a lesser athlete is just, turning him into a turnstile.
I will say, in fairness, and I'm not like, I'm not justifying, all of that, because everything you just said is spot on. Like, we see that there are like all-star guards, and like there are people in his position that, like, I think of like Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, a guy who, is scoring at such a high, proficient level, playing the best offensive basketball of his career for years, has been such a great player on the offensive end, but has always been kind of a deterrent on the defensive end. We've seen the moments where he can be good on that side of the ball, but let's be honest, Donovan Mitchell in Utah on the defensive end was not exactly Gary Payton. You know what I mean? But like, this year we've seen him step up a little bit more in Cleveland. He's been a little bit better on that side of the ball. But like, the reason why he can get away with that is because he is like one of the best players in the NBA on that side of the ball, and for lack of better terms, like, he's 6'1". You almost kind of expect it from a guy that's that size. When I look at a guy like Jaden Ivey and the physical gifts he has, his arm span, like how like his gigantic like wingspan, like everything that he, like all the tools that he has, to his disposal, he can be one of the best players in this league. And he can do it by being really good on both ends of the ball. I think with this age and the social media age, I don't want to sound like a boomer, but I think, with like how much we show like highlights of dunks and threes and all that stuff, I think the appreciation of the side of the defensive side of the ball is just harder and harder to find. And I think with a guy, I think, with these younger guys, it's like, not only do you have to teach them to, you have to teach them to, like commit to the defensive side of the ball. I feel like you got to teach them to love the defensive side of the ball and like why, that matters so much. That's just me. That's just like a personal thing I have personally.
Yeah, and I know Carl, I got some comments on Ivy as well, but I know Carl, I want to be able to let you speak on Ivy before you got to bounce.
Yeah, I think in terms of defense and free throws, those are the two things we're kind of concerned with him. I mean, luckily those are things that can be fixed. I mean, he has intangibles. We've seen those. We've seen guys get better defensively and with free throws too. So with that said, those are things that need to be improved, but I'm not worried about Ivy. I think I'm pretty confident that he can improve. He has the physical tools to be a good defender too. So, we'll see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I know with Jaden Ivey, for me personally, I used to be a little bit concerned about some of these trends, but he just looks like a guy who's trying to learn. You're right. For Coach's son, what I see out of him is that they worked on a lot of offense. That's what I see. He looks like the type of guy who, if they worked on a lot of defense, that he would be better defensively now. And whenever he got out of his mom's, tutelage, yeah, she can come in and give him certain like, hey, do this, do that. And I believe he had great basketball minds around him, but the defense is something I believe is sorely lacking because he's not losing on like a metrics and a measurable standpoint. He's losing these defensive battles from just what I'm seeing from a technique standpoint. Like his footwork is not right, or he's opening up too wide, believing that there's like a defender there. The way
he's got to stop turning his body. Defense. That'd be like the number one thing I would tell him is like stay square every single time. Why do you do that? Like that's the number one thing he's getting turned on. I don't understand why Casey isn't just like yanking him when that happens.
They teach
sitting him for a little bit, and then being like, hey, remember square.
In college, they teach you to shade somebody, pick a side of the court. If you're on the right side, shade them to that side. And he looks like, and that's what they tell the freshmen. As you get older, you kind of know like the techniques, your side, zone with man principles, bump the cutters and all of that. He's looking like a freshman on defense. And I got to remember, how many years has he played? So some of these guys, they come out better. We wonder why some of these coaches are like, yo, these Villanova guys, we love them. Like Sadiq Bey, we love these guys. Like, is a reason why, even though Sadiq Bey's defense needs some work, it's not the same. It's not the same. What were you going to say, Sean?
And I was going to say, like obviously having that, the tutelage of his mom as a coach, having that in the home is everything and like super important. I do think though, it's important to remember at the roots, that is his mother. So I think there's always going to be an inherent softer side there, an inherent,
or
like
hands off on that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like, like that's her baby, right? So like, I think that's always going to be like, that's always going to be a part of it, whether she, she looks at it that way or not. So I, for me on this side of the ball, this is where I look to Dwayne Casey. This is where I look to Troy Weaver and also for this organization. Right. And I think for like, I think for the lack of better terms, it's like, I think it's just, like, this is where, it's like, hey, welcome to the NBA. This is what you got drafted for. You have a lot of talents and abilities. If you want to stay here, if you want to be one of the next great Pistons guards, because we don't celebrate any Pistons guard for just one side of the ball. Even Chauncey and Rip, we celebrate for their effort on the defensive end. Joe and Isaiah for their effort on the defensive end and their free throw shooting.
Elite free throw shooting. Not
exactly.
Just free throw shooting, elite from those guys.
So yeah, like this is like, for me, it's like, obviously I know some cities might have a guard where it's like, oh, well, you're like, it's okay if you're not the best on defense. Detroit's not that city. It's just not.
No. With Jaden Ivey and Benedict Mathurin, though, and that's why I left this up. I don't know what here's Johnny, where he was going with that or whatnot, but one of the funnest trends to track has been Jaden Ivey, and I'm sorry, Steve, and Benedict Mathurin since the beginning of the season. I keep going 10-game sample sizes, 10-game sample sizes, 10-game sample sizes as the season goes on, just to make sure that I'm not missing any trends. And they keep trending very, very well for Jaden Ivey. I don't. It's like no matter what his shooting numbers are, the guy just finds a way to get to 15 points. His average just stays around that. He hasn't had the swings and the dips and the dives that the other players on the Pistons roster has had, or even Benedict Mathurin. And so when I look at him as a player, I wonder sometimes if he's being judged unfairly because we're super zoomed in to all of his ups, all of his downs. And with Benedict Mathurin, we might not be paying attention to the fact that a lot of his stats and a lot of things that people fell in love with have completely disappeared, and he has not gotten them back yet.
Yeah, so Benedict Mathurin since the beginning of December is averaging 21% from the 3-point line. He's averaging less than one. He's averaging less than 1 make from the 3-point line per game. I'm sorry to steal your thunder there.
No, you good. You could read them. I was gonna read them. It don't matter to read them.
I'm sorry, man. I didn't want to steal your thunder. My bad.
No, it don't matter if you got stats. You got them. I add the last 10. If you have since the beginning of December, that's even a larger sample size, a larger range.
Yeah,
like for real. Like it's just when you look at it, the area that Benedict Mathurin that's giving him a boost is what we're all talking about as well with Jaden Ivey as it relates to free throw shooting and getting into the lane and having that control in the paint. I haven't, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at Benedict Mathurin's defense yet. I haven't heard too many people say that it's been like good, but so I don't want to compare that aspect of it. But free throw shooting, that's one area where Benedict Mathurin is just head and shoulders above. What's good, Steve?
Yeah, I try and stay out of these discussions because obviously I'm biased to my guy Mathurin since I'm here in Tucson and I've been around them. I understand him personally more and understand the human being, so I'm always going to root for him. A few things I will say, though, is Arizona staff, no matter who it is, teaches you got to play multiple roles in the NBA. And if your shot's not falling or if you're not getting the dimes or you're getting turnovers, like you got to switch to something else. I think that's the biggest difference between the two of them. Like Mathurin knows he's going to hit cold stretches. So that's why he's developed more of a on the ball type of game to be able to get to the free throw line. His free throw attempt rate is almost 10% greater than Jaden Ivey, which was really surprising. I think that's the one trend that Ivey's kind of lost him on. And I'd be interested to like do a side-by-side film comparison because I thought it would be the other way around, right? Mm-hmm. That Ivey would be getting to the line almost 50%, but it's Mathurin on that end. Yeah. And yeah, it sucks too because their roles are so different where Mathurin's like the sixth man and they like you can tell that the Pacers had a plan for like if these guys fall, this is who we're going to draft and this is their plan for him. And Mathurin, it was like, okay, he's going to be the sixth man. We're going to have him mainly as a shooter. We're going to give him some on-ball reps as well in the bench unit and have not really let him be out there on his own, whereas the Pistons didn't have that luxury now since Cade went out. So that's just the two differences between the two of them. They're both fantastic players. I think they'll end up both being really good starters for a long time. But it is surprising that Mathurin already is getting to the line that much because he didn't display that penchant here, even though he can get up and drop the hammer. So kudos to him and kudos to Ivey for starting to like iron out some of the 3-point shot.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say really quickly, I think the other part that you're saying too is I think that, but with both Ivey and Mathurin, I think they both kind of like hit slumps at relatively similar times. One thing that you see in the beginning of these guys' rookie seasons is that these guys often come out of the gates hot and start out really well. And then what happens is these teams collect tapes on players. The playbook comes out on how to defend these guys. And, and that's generally when you see the slumps. That's when you see the struggles. And I think with specifically like, with Jaden Ivey and Benedict Mathurin, like Benedict Mathurin especially, he was coming out and he was hooping on fools. You know what I mean? He was dropping he had nights where he was dropping like 27 plus. He was hooping. So like when you're playing like that, you're naturally going to rise very high in people's scouting reports. And that's a compliment to what he's, to how well he's played. But again, part of being in the league and part of that, part of, like the process is who can adjust to it. And I think with Ivey, like you said, Steve, he's been put in a position where, he's had to have the ball more. And I think he's had to have more minutes and more exposure of playing against those, like that starting level competition. So I think for him, to see him turn it around and how comfortable he's getting in certain situations offensively, at least, has been really good to see. There's still a lot of really good things that Benedict Mathurin's doing. he's been a very key part, to the Pacers' success. And, he's been very fun to watch. I think both the Pacers and the Pistons would probably, if they had to go back, would probably stick and be happy with who they chose. But again, I think, Steve's point there, it's like, each NBA player's development story is different. Everyone's journey in the league's different. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, but I don't think that's how it goes sometimes. Obviously with the journey part, yeah, but some of the
Players
notions,
are always inherently linked together, though, I think.
they are. But with some of the notions, I think some of those notions they kind of just get washed around. Like what's this, Steve?
I think the big thing is the Pacers are 23-19. Like they can make a push for the play-in, and a big reason why is Benedict Mathurin. Like teams have had to adjust to his 3-point shooting to account for it, like early on, and then he went to the free throws after that to generate extra shots, and people are seeing like, oh yeah, this is what's helping them to win. It's not the main reason. It's obviously Tyrese Halliburton being as good as he is, and or from distance, and Miles Turner's defense always being solid, but Benedict Mathurin is always in there, and the Pistons, everybody's injured, right? So it's hard to say like, oh yeah, I can do this. I think that's just a big part of it.
They also had a healthy Tyrese Halliburton. That's a big part of why they've been successful too.
And he's 1 year ahead in his development too. So
yep.
I guess my thing with it is I haven't seen a slump from Jaden Ivey. I've been tracking this thing from the beginning of the season, 10-game increments, and I haven't seen a slump. You see times where maybe the shot isn't hitting, but he's still finding ways to affect the game and still finding ways to score. He may go like a 2 or 3 game stretch where he doesn't have something.
Maybe slumps from like a shooting standpoint. Like that would probably be like where it would be. And like, and maybe it hasn't been like for like longer stretches of games. Like to your point, like, like that is the thing I have liked about Ivy is the fact that, he can rebound, he can play make, like that, his playmaking especially has been way better this year than I thought it would have been in year 1.
Yeah, no, Johnny, honestly, there's no slump. When I actually sit and you check the numbers, you do the numbers, you do the streams, you do the articles, I can sit up here and say you find a slump. You may find 1 or 2 games strung together, maybe 3.
Also,
but
go to
you gotta
the
realistically go out there because I'm doing this thing in 10 game stretches. And what I see out of here is that in the last 10 games, right? So if he's had a slump in the last 10 games, you got to find it because it's 15 points, 4.5 assists, 3.4 rebounds per game. And how much from 3? 45.5% from 3. Like, we can talk about the turnovers. He's a rookie. He's going to have some turnovers. You
young
said
guards,
slump, though.
Yeah,
you said slump. Johnny,
who else turns it over? Every young guard in the history of the NBA. Cade Cunningham turned the ball over.
And that's why I wanted to do this because, everybody will find a way to pick through whatever Jaden Ivey's doing. I think just because Piston fans do that to their own players. Well, this roster for some reason. But that we don't, when you want to get into it, the last 10 for Benedict Mathurin, 15.8 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists. I like the players. Personally, I wanted Benedict Mathurin if we didn't get Jaden Ivey. I still think he's going to be a fine player, but it's just about how we talk about our team. We come on here every single week, and it doesn't seem like we're talking to people who honestly are getting a heavy dose or perspective of the league, or at least comparing what our guys are doing against the guys we think are doing better. And when I look at the case, I don't see where Mathurin has done better than Ivey in almost 2 whole months. Like, it's been a very, very long time. You can't justify, 26%, 21% shooting from 3 when that's what you were supposed to come in and do. And when the scoring isn't there for Benedict, you would think on a better team that the playmaking would be able to be there if you're going to have the ball in your hands. And I don't say that to try and knock Benedict Mathurin. I say that because these are the things that I've seen Jaden Ivey actually excel in. When the shot's not falling, I see Jaden Ivey going out there and getting 5, 6 assists. On the nights that his shot's not falling, I see his assists go up. On the nights that, whether his shot's falling or not, I see him in there battling and getting rebounds. You can count on Jaden Ivey to go out there by halftime and have literally 6 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He's been doing that like clockwork, which means he's all over the court. And those are the things that I'm talking about. When we're talking about Ivy, when we're looking at what he's doing, it's not even just one game with him. I like to look at those in-between games, like with Killian. I like to bookend. Let me get to Killian. Let me look at his games after he's had a couple bad games in a row to see, is Killian going to continue to extend this slump, or is he going to say, no, 1-2 bad games? Nah, I got this thing figured out. And now he's having bad shooting games, but still good games. And I see Jaden Ivey starting to put together the same type of a track record when we're talking about compared to like Benedict Mathurin or other rookies or other young guards, as Sean so aptly pointed out. Ivy is yeah, he's right. Jaden Ivey's had a crap ton of minutes.
And for a guard who's had a crap ton of minutes, he's only averaging 2.8 turnovers a game. He's averaging under 3 turnovers, which for a rookie, like if we're gonna if we're gonna give him a lot of criticism for his turnovers, I think we should give him credit for the fact that that's a pretty damn good turnover rate, considering the fact that he is having such a high usage. To compare it, Cade Cunningham in his rookie year, 3.7 turnovers a game. Like we saw that was a problem with him. Are we trying to run C2 out of the city? You know what I mean? Like that's, and listen, like that's where this year, that's where the leash is longer on those types of things, turnovers. And that's where the mistakes are going, like you're going to see those types of mistakes. That's just the reality of watching young players play basketball. But
I would say this. You finished your statement. My bad, brother.
I was just going to really quickly say, we've seen Jaden Ivey have nights and flashes where the game slowed down and where he's really limited turnovers. So to his credit, I think we've seen the flashes where he can limit it. Go ahead, Kool-Aid.
Yep. And what I was going to say with Jaden Ivey and everything, a lot of this stuff is about circumstances and situations, to Steve's point, because Benedict Mathurin is going to be playing in a situation to where the defenses are going to be edged up a lot more than what the Pistons are going to face. Benedict Mathurin is going to find himself in a position where they're playing teams who are coming out saying they know we got to battle against another playoff squad, and his responsibilities, though they both might have pretty decent usage rates that are pretty up there, the circumstances and situations are different, and that's just to kind of make sure we're being balanced to it. The stats are saying what they're saying, and I'm actually pleased with Ivy, because who thought that Ivy was going to be a 15-5-5 player to start the year? We were just sitting here saying, wow, Cade Cunningham averaged what for his whole year? Like 17, 6 and 4? We were just sitting here kind of like, yo, Ivy's come out slumping and averaging 15-5-5 with really better than we expected shooting numbers. I think that's to me, and that's why I wanted to get into this, because Killian Hayes, Saddiq Bey, and Jaden Ivey, I think more than any other Detroit Pistons this year, have been the ones that have been heavily scrutinized. Ivy so much, because they've all been what? So you got the first of Troy Weaver's lottery picks in Killian Hayes. You have the last of Troy Weaver's lottery picks in Jaden Ivey, and then you have Saddiq Bey, somebody who's from Villanova, a little bit older than the players, high hopes, shown high flashes. But these guys have shown some crazy inconsistencies. And right when it seems like they're putting it together, there always seems to be something that could hold them back. But now it seems like they're starting to get a little bit more consistent, man, and put it all together. And, Steve, that's why I wanted to ask you, what do you think, just to play a little game, what do you think would be different if they flip-flopped Benedict Mathurin and Jaden Ivey?
I gotta think about this one for a minute. I think the 3-point shooting would honestly be better, because Mathurin wouldn't be asked to be in the role where he's like the primary creator off the bench. And the looks that Ivey's gotten maybe more open looks. I would have to really go back and look at a lot of more Pacer games, but in the Mathurin games that I've followed, I mean, they're especially after the first like 15, 20 games, like they're really keen on him.
If you would have told me I would have given this much of a shit about Pacers basketball in January, I would not have believed you at all. Go ahead, Steve. Anyway.
So I think he would have helped out the 3-point percentages better. I think we wouldn't be griping so much about needing a wing defender, because he flashes more on that end, has better lateral mobility here, has been trained a lot better here by Tommy Lloyd and the staff on how to play professional defense both on and off the ball. The free throw numbers would be phenomenal. Like everybody would be saying that number one. Oh, I can't believe he's getting a free throw line.
What's he at? Almost 9 a game over the last 10 games, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think there would be as much complaining, just because the quote unquote fit is a lot better than Jaden Ivey. Everybody had the fit question coming in with Jaden Ivey. So that's part of it too. Also, we have 3 seasons now of pretty much the same kind of bad defensive film. I think that's another thing. And for me, like the frustrating part about Jaden Ivey is we all say that he's going to get better because he has the tools when he hasn't shown it yet. Like we're wanting him to be great, not just good, right? If he went to the Pacers, though, I actually think he would be in a better situation because he has Halliburton there to shoot threes and take the space away from him. Miles Turner as well. I mean, they could play basically 5 out and have Ivy have more space to operate. Rick Carlisle would definitely come up with creative sets. I mean, Rick Carlisle helped OJ Mayo and Monta Ellis look like real good NBA players. So I'm fairly certain he would help out Ivy a lot. Also, the fan base there would go pretty banana, as Pat Patterson used to say, in one of their Indiana boys, right? Neil Ivey was there for so many years with Indiana Fever. And then he played at Purdue, just a little bit ways down there. I think they would eat him up even more than we do.
But maybe they wouldn't have challenged him to be that good on the defensive end if he went to Indiana. Like maybe he could like.
It's Rick Carlisle. Of course, he's going to be challenging him to be that good.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. Like, yes, like if you were to say like, you know, like if you were to look at the situations right now, like you could make the argument that if you were to flip the players that like in the interim they might be better situations, you know, like for the players at the moment, like I could see that argument, but at the same time, you know, like I think, you know, like again with draft prospects, the other piece of the equation is we always have to remember it is year 1 and it is month 3 of year 1, and so you know, I'm just when I say like, you know, like when I say like, yeah, like he can, like when I say like the improvements on the defensive end, like what I'm saying there's like he most certainly has the tools and everything he needs to get better on that end. It's up to him whether or not he actually does it.
Yeah, it'll be something I talk about in more depth because I've been researching this pretty much all season. But like thinking of guys who started out as bad defenders who ended up being good, how many of them were 6'4" or under? It's been I haven't found an example yet. Not to say that there's not one out there, but I'm continuing the search. Who was a guy that was under the 6'4" and under that started out as a bad defender that ended up being a good one in his career? It's something to look into.
And we don't need him to be a great defender. If he can even just be average, if he could just be serviceable, if he can be to the point where we don't have to pull him off the court, I think that alone would just make him.
I mean, my closest one is Zach LaVine. That's the closest one to me that I'm like, this seems about it. Like if Zach LaVine didn't have a jump shot and he got to the line more, maybe this is it. Because Ivy's that same way where he's a good enough playmaker, but you don't want Zach LaVine running the point, right? Because he's not that good. You mainly want him scoring. I think it's somewhere around that.
Right.
Yep. And when he has the ball in his hands, you just really want him scoring. That's it. You don't want to take playmaker minutes away and give him to Zach LaVine to play make that. But you know, with Jaden Ivey, I love the fact that he's finding ways to be an all-around playmaker or just basketball player in general on offense. On the defensive side, I believe that he has a lot to learn. We want our guys to be individually sound, not just to be able to be covered up by a good defense. But I do believe that as the defense behind him gets better, that changes things. A lot of, I love this comment. Lindsey Hunter should coach that DV. Yo, here's Johnny. We can break
shout out Lindsey Hunter, by the way.
Bro.
I want to get Lindsey on the pod at some point in 2023.
Oh, he's on the way. He's on the way.
Joel's trying to call him right now, but he's not answering. So
there's some stuff on the way. Would definitely say that. But I believe that as the team around him gets better defensively, it will get better for him and easier for him. Like if Miles Turner was back there, there's less guys who are saying, "Oh, I can take this little rookie off the dribble. I know he don't know the techniques." But when you got a defender back there who can cover for you, like Tayshaun Prince, good defender, but he had the benefit of having the Wallace Bros, you know, the original double beef back there. You know what I'm saying? And I wonder how much things like that help Ivy, because then you can actually stay on the court to continue to play through mistakes. I agree with you. Like Casey has said, he does not want these guys to develop playing mistakes, and defense is the wrong side that you want a guy like Ivy to learn or to get like habitual with his mistakes. break that stuff immediately. He's the type of player, if you say he's the son of a coach, that you literally have to yank early. Other players like a Cade, they have more of a methodical pace to the game and about them. Whereas Ivy, you could tell he just has to be taught a few things. And as that team around him gets better, I think it'll show a lot more improvement for him individually.
Do you guys think if the Pistons end up like just because I'm just bringing it up for the sake that it is a possibility, do you think if the Pistons get Victor Wembanyama, do you think
like
that
that.
Do you think that point is more mute? Do you think that, like, knowing that there is, instead of the back line being, like what it is right now, like if you knew the back line that, like if Ivy were to say slip up, if you knew the back line had Jalen Duren and Victor Wembanyama in it, would it make that point more mute to you guys? I mean, obviously from a developmental standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, from everything you would say, you would want to say you still want to develop on the defensive end because that would still make the team better.
Yeah.
But would you say your urgency would be as high if we had a Victor Wembanyama? I personally don't
feel
think so.
so much more comfortable. I think this is the best way I can put it. I would feel so much more comfortable with Jaden Ivey's development if we had a player like Victor Wembanyama, Victor Wembanyama on this team. If we don't have a guy like that, then it's like, I don't know, because to Steve's point, and like you prefaced, he has to get better. He has to get better defensively. We sat here all summer and we talked about after we lost Jeremy Grant, we just realized how bleak it was that if we don't have confident Killian, what defenders do we have? We started to realize
Vic would play the 4, by the way.
What'd you say?
Someone asked, is this assuming Vic plays the 3?
Let me put that up.
Yeah, Vic would probably play the 4, and more than likely Isaiah Stewart would either be brought off the bench, or with the way that he's playing, I'd say I'd say with what Cleveland did last year with Lauri Markkanen playing the small forward, I don't think it would be genuinely crazy to throw out there that we could see a Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Duren starting lineup.
I got
triple beef. Triple beef.
Triple beef. I like it.
That's the beef, potatoes, the gravy. Like, I love it, dog. That's the whole freaking counter, man.
I love that.
I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I'm just saying that that is a realistic conversation that can be had.
But can you at least, for the good omens and good luck, can you at least say it's what you want to have happen in some type of sound effect? With a sound effect, though. With a sound effect, bro. It's almost like throwing a coin into a wishing well.
Please, Heavenly Father, let us end up with the lottery gods, getting us Victor Wembanyama.
Let's rock.
If I can answer the question, though, I'd still be concerned because Ivy's point of attack defense is number one, what it has to be.
Well, you also just hate Jaden Ivey, and you're going to look at every
No, because I can't.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's 3 years. I've been following this guy for 3 years now, since a freshman at Purdue, since he first flashed.
He's been a hater ever since.
When you have 3 years of film that doesn't change and it's all bad, it's hard to think it's just going to automatically flip the switch. And again, I know there are plenty of guys. There are plenty of guys that become better defenders in the NBA. Again, all the test cases I've seen are like wing players or big men that turn it around. I'm trying to find a guard. So anybody out there, somebody under or 6'4" and under, who was a bad defender coming into the NBA that turned it around and became a good defender, maybe even a passable defender in the NBA. It's also hard because like pre-1998, if you didn't play defense, you didn't see the court, right? And then it started to change a little bit more. Yeah, so even when you look back on guards, because I looked in like Derek Harper, like a bunch of different dudes on that Knicks team, John Starks and stuff. But even then, it was like, yeah, they were dogs on defense in college, and that's how they got to the NBA. So it's hard to find this. So Ivy's anomalous, but maybe in a bad way. I'll continue to dig, though, and we'll find an answer eventually.
But Steve, it's the frustrating thing with Ivy's defense. He looks like he's trying hard, though. Like, you know what I mean? It looks like he's really trying hard. It's just like he's just like doesn't know sometimes where to be, or like it's just a step slow. And I don't get it.
one thing I will say though, where I don't think where this will definitively stay the case. One difference between players in the 90s and players that we're seeing coming up now is the way that they're being brought up and the way the development system is. Whereas, whereas back then you might see more guys who were more specialized and were more and had more refined skill sets, coming out of college, whereas now you see a lot of guys, who are playing a ton of hoops and a lot of guys who can do a lot of things in the offensive end and freak athletes. But you also see a lot of guys who on certain sides of the basketball, like on the defensive side, are so underdeveloped. And that's where, and obviously I know that's been in play and for long enough to where guys LeBron played in AAU, right? So it's I'm not saying that that's oh, that will change, but it's I'm just curious because of the way that players develop and the way players are growing up and learning the game is different than what it was, if that could possibly be a case where we do see more players rise up on that side.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Look, this was great conversation though, man. This was great because I think we dived into a lot. It's not that Ivy's perfect, with here's Johnny. I'm gonna put him up there again. I think
Steve's like,
yeah, I think he had that. Steve is like,
Steve almost gave himself whiplash with how hard he nodded there.
But it's exciting because do you guys know how many imperfect rookies we've had that had very pedestrian stats? Nothing of hope, nothing that we could say the trend looks like this, for as good
this isn't Brandon Knight.
Yeah, but think about it. For as good as Stanley Johnson's defense was, we have way more hope in Jaden Ivey, and Jaden Ivey's defense is far more away, off than Stanley Johnson's was. It got to get there. He has to take a step. There's other guys on the team who like Sadiq Bey. I don't believe you want to see Sadiq Bey take a step defensively. I don't believe he needs to if the team gets better defensively, around him. Ivy will improve if the team around him gets better, but he still needs to take that slight step forward. There's games where he finds himself in foul trouble or his big gets into foul trouble because he's just a second or a step late. And you see him oh, shoot. And then he tries really hard. The Philly game, Steve, we've talked about this. I think we've talked about this as well, Sean, where I remember they posted up Embiid, they threw the ball down, and the play design was to go down immediately. As soon as the ball goes on the Embiid, go down, show, and then recover back to your shooter. And he decided to go down just a little late. He turned his head and looked at Embiid. That's the thing you don't do because all you can do is just throw it right past you. Your defender catches it, your offensive player catches it and shoots it. So he looks at Embiid. Embiid just puts the ball out like this, and then Ivy goes on to try and help. Embiid tries to throw it back. Ivy gets a foul. And it's just you know what I mean? It's those are the types of things that I am hoping that he can get ironed out to where his responses, kind of that knowing what to do, their instinct on the court, your defensive instinct. That's what I'm hoping that he can get right next year, before next year. I want to see that stuff start to pan out towards the second half of the season. Last year, we saw them go on a nice run. I would love to see them be able to do that this year as well and show some great improvement from our young guys. That's what this is all hoped and built on. The whole restoration, the whole rebuild is on what Troy Weaver, I believe, is going to continue to call the core and continue to remake and remake and remake. We see he already trimmed the hair a little bit, not with some players of consequence, but we didn't know Saban Lee was going to be gone. They trimmed a little bit of the hair. Now we know that if you guys like Killian, Sadiq, and Isaiah Stewart, if they don't pan out, they're the next to get trimmed in some way, shape, or form. If they don't pan out, if they don't show or prove that they're, worth their weight in gold. But
by the way, shout out to Saban Lee. Just got signed to a 10-day contract by the Suns yesterday. So congrats to him.
Hey, congrats to Saban Lee. I wanted to see him work out here. I did. But hey, shout out Kid Jay. He said, hey, boys, sorry I couldn't be there in the studio. See y'all next week.
Hey, all love Jay.
Kid Jay, man. He rocked out with me at LCA the other day.
Good Kid Jay.
Look, we had fun at LCA the other day. I got some more content that's coming up. He was getting out there on the concourse, and we were dealing with all the fans, man, asking them these Pistons trivia. And look, we got a game show on the way, but we're going to be doing it live as well at LCA. Asking you guys the questions live. And whoever impresses the most, Sean, are you ready to demolish people at this?
Oh, I'm going to kick some ass. You kidding me?
Hey, I'm telling y'all, be on the lookout for the Pistons trivia. We asked some of these questions yesterday. I was actually surprised. Some of these people got some of these answers right, that they knew some of their legends. But Kid J was out there. We had fun. He and his pops, man, they came out there to hold it down with us and help up the Woodward fam. But my last word, before I let Sean and Steve say their last word, and Sean, you can wrap up after that. Who wants to do a table talk at LCA?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Look, guys, we're gonna be trying to set this up. We're gonna be out there. Yesterday was pretty fun. At the last couple games, we've had some fun getting in and interacting with the fans. But I want to be able to have the whole crew there, and so we're working on that right now to be able to have at least 1, 2, or 3 of these before the season ends, and by next season, hopefully with real access. And the Detroit Pistons table talk is a permanent thing at LCA.
And shout out to the Pistons, by the way, for recognizing what we have going on here, for for working with us the way that they have, and just for for the care that they have in the community and and what they recognize in the content space. So we just appreciate them, and we're just grateful to be in this position.
Yep, and I appreciate you all too for tuning in, for checking out all the content across our entire network. Woodward Sports, is at the top, but there's Woodward Pistons, there's From Half Court, and there's so much more. There's Res Ball, Pod, Steve. There's a lot. There's a lot of people contribute to what we do. Yeah, there's a lot of people that contribute to what we do, and honestly are big parts of why we are who we are and why we are what we're doing. And a big part of that is you guys. Please continue to tune in, check in. We have some really, really fun things planned for you all. Watch parties, meetups, table talk lives, giveaways, prizes, and some more cool merch and gifts and things like that to bring you guys into the family more.
And a hell of a lot of content. A hell of a lot of content.
It's gonna be
a metric crap ton of content.
Yeah, but take it away. Anybody else for the last words?
Well, yeah, I just want to say go follow my podcast, Resball. I also started a Substack, resball.substack.com. Just dropped the first big board of the new year, all the way from 1 to 100. So if you want to know a bunch of different prospects, go check that out now. And subscribe to all that stuff that we always say to do anyway.
Steve's the man. Go follow him on Twitter at ResballPod. Go follow my guy Kool-Aid on Twitter at Detroit Kool-Aid as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean F. Court. Folks, thank you all so much for being here. We wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for you all. Be sure you like and subscribe and continue to join and be that fourth or fifth seat at the table. Because each and every week we're going to come, whether it's from our houses, whether it's from our new apartments, whether it's from, we'll freaking broadcast from a landfill. We'll freaking sorry.
Hey, let them know.
Put my Dan Campbell in. But but whether it's from the LCA, we're going to be there each and every week, and we're going to try to bring you that content because this is what we're here to do. Oh no, the K Crusaders here. But ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you all so much for tuning in, being here for Woodward Pistons Table Talk. Be sure you subscribe. And
subscribe.
Be sure you're tuned in for 2023, man, because as much as we did in 2022, 2023 is going to make it look like a freaking speck of dust blowing in the wind. We're ready to do big things this year, man. We hope you're ready too.
Those are swishes, by the way.
Always.
Did y'all see that?
Oh yeah, the K Crusader doesn't miss, brother. Anyways,
teach me a few things, man. I need to learn.
Thank y'all so much for being here. We love you all, and we will catch you guys next time on Woodward Pistons Table Talk. Subscribe.
Definitely. Hey, find us on anywhere you can get your podcasts as well. Woodward Pistons. Listen, the audio will be up there in the morning. Love you guys.